Okay, everybody. So we're going to talk about some leaked images that came courtesy of IamaBiker. This is his Facebook page. I don't really know much about him, but judging by his Facebook page, he's in India, which would make a lot of sense because this bike has a massive following in India, for one, and for two, a lot of stuff seems to be tested out in India. So, which I mean, for the rest of the world, it's pretty good because India is a very diverse country with a lot of different environments for testing these kind of things out. So, first, let's talk about the side profile. So, uh, very interesting change. Um, I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it. Um, this is the supposed 2024 Duke right here. Let's look at some of the older models. So this is the second gen. As you can see, it still has kind of a very similar frame design as the first gen. They introduced the removable tail section, right? But overall, it's very similar, right? Same engine, changed the exhaust setup and everything else, and then first gen, right? So as you can see, pretty similar, right? They just cut the end off, added a few things, and kind of kept close to the same design. So looking at this first gen, right? Second gen, pretty similar, completely new tank and everything else. And then looking at this, I I'm not too sure how I feel about it. Um, the tail end kind of looks like from some of the other models that they've introduced in the past, and meaning like the 690, 790 kind of like it's real wide, fat stance to it, right? I'm not really sure that this was a good move on their part, and I say this because the bike was known widely in the community to be, specifically to be a very lightweight and small, agile bike. This is kind of increased that footprint, right? It makes it seem like it's a much larger bike, right? Obviously, they've redone the entire design. They have more of an open engine case here at the bottom, which is, probably going to help when it comes to being able to do maintenance on the bike. Um, but at the same time, it also just means that this is way more exposed to, the elements in general, right? And there are some people that are that, you know, for this bike, it's very popular to take out and do off roading. Some of the other countries, India, for example, where there's a lot of dirt roads and everything else, I don't know that this is something that's going to really be something that's wanted because that engine's very exposed, right? So it's an interesting design choice. Um, the other part we're going to talk about is this tank. Uh, I don't know if this is like a KTM thing where they're like, hey, let's grow this wing out further and further because they look great. 2016. All right, we'll just line it up right here. Moving on to the second gen, make it a little longer. Third gen, let's make it way longer. I'm gonna say that the insanity kind of needs to stop with this. I don't like this part. I don't like how long it is. I think it's kind of crazy. Um, but that's just my opinion, and I'm sure you guys will have your own opinion as well. Um, the seat. This is an interesting design feature. I'm kind of interested to see more of that a little bit later on. I do think, like I said, from a maintenance standpoint, it does seem like if you needed to do stuff here, it'd be pretty easy. Um, so that part is good. Okay, headlight portion. So very similar to second gen. One thing that you'll notice is, it looks like they did change it up, made these a lot smaller. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if first and second gen Dukes tried to incorporate this because everybody always likes smaller lights. The mirrors, I like the mirrors compared to first and second gen mirrors. They look a lot better. I mean, these things were freaking gigantic, so it's nice to see that they have better looking mirrors, but also more adjustability. So that part's nice. Let's see here. Okay, more of a front profile of the front headlight. So imagine, for if you will, kind of similar to like it's kind of like they combined the first gen and second gen headlight, and then they added these big flares on the side, right? I mean, I get it. You got to change it up somehow. Um, Everything else in the front, though, hmm. I wonder if the brakes on the other side now. We'll have to flip over one of the other photos and see. Okay, closer up spy shot of the engine, so to speak. Um, so this is what's interesting. I don't know if this is a completely new engine or if what they've done to change it, but I was kind of looking, and this it doesn't look the same as second gen, right? So you have the drain plug here, okay? Now, typically on the second and first gen, the shifter is more behind the engine, like in a lower placement. Here it's much higher. And some of these components just they don't line up correctly or the same. I don't know if they have a side photo. Okay, here we go. Let's look at this one. Let's see here. Okay, so yeah, see, drain plug. It's down here to the side, and then if you look at the engine case is different in comparison. So engine case completely different. There's this portion which appears could be an oil filter housing, right? Obviously, we all know the oil filter's on the other side. So this is if this is in fact the 390, the future 390, that means this engine's different, and that means for once they've actually made changes that could see to maybe more power output. I don't know if this means that they're going to do, you know, closer to actual 400 cc's. I don't know, maybe, but from what I can tell, it's definitely not the same, and so that might be exciting. I'd be curious to see some of the changes. Some of these are pretty similar, right? You have the axis hole here. Same with here. You still have the line of sight hole for lining up top dead center, which is the same position roughly. Engine mount's slightly different. I actually like the way this engine mount looks. It looks pretty slick. Um, and then obviously this exhaust is a lot different. Here you can see the O2 sensor on the second gen kind of protrudes deeply into the exhaust path, which creates a little more resistance. And then here it looks like it might be slightly angled. It's kind of hard from this photo, but interesting design. I really am interested to see how big of a difference, and more importantly, if there's any cross-platform possibilities between these two engines in terms of parts. So it'll be. I'd like to see the head design. Um, okay, so let's go back. We'll blow this up again. Tail section. That's it's. I like it, but it's freaking gigantic. It's really hard to say. I'm not sure what the purpose of this is. I'd imagine that there's probably a lot of space inside of here, cargo space maybe. But I mean that it is massive amounts of space in this area. Okay, so components. So obviously you can see the cylinder head here, and then I'm not sure what this is here. And there's a cat, and I kind of feel like we need to see the other side of the photo of this. This might be a secondary O2 sensor right here. Interesting. That might be a pain for future people trying to do tuning if that's the case, because the moment you do a cat delete, it's going to sense, catalytic converter bank 2 inefficiency, because, the cat's gone at that point. So, um, okay. So here's yep, sure enough, right there, another O2 sensor. Interesting. So this model has two O2 sensors now. Okay. Let's go back. Does this have dual shocks? It does not look like it. Nope, I don't see anything. What's interesting about that is the shock is very far on the right hand side, whereas on the second and first gen it's centered. This would make more room if you wanted to actually, change out a shock to a different setup. But that's really far on the right hand side. And I wonder if that's going to have any effect on how this bike handles in general. Um, the other thing that I would be curious to see is the actual weight of this thing. The Duke has been known for being a very lightweight bike. This thing looks like it's a porker in comparison. We're talking about dual sport naked bike, and this thing has a lot going on, and so it looks like it's pretty similar to the same shock that comes in all the other ones. But the rear swing arm, completely new design. I kind of like it. It also looks like the rear wheelbase is a lot shorter because of that. But it's hard to say because this big tail section could just be very deceptive, right? Looking on, new rear brakes. Brakes are different. Uh, Front brakes completely different because these are mounted on the right side. Before in the past, these were mounted on the left side, and I'm not sure if these are the same units or if these are a different diameter, but it's definitely a different brake rotor design, just based off of its mounting, which means that it's not going to be cross-platform compatible, just because it is specific to these wheels. These wheels are different. I kind of like them. They look pretty good. I mean, you got to kind of change it up a little bit, but I do kind of question the endurance of these wheels, meaning how well are they going to handle it, considering it's only a five-spoke design. And again, one of the major primary markets is in India, where there can be kind of rough roads. So hopefully we don't see a lot of cracked rims because of that, because there are definitely some smaller areas. Okay, rear brake reservoir. That's different. Smaller, clear design. It's actually something that people like a lot, just because it looks a little better. And again, this gigantic mammoth tooth of a tank cover. And obviously the tank is here. Looks like it has a larger capacity, which is nice. And then the radiator cover guard itself, they've also made it gigantic as well. And I think that's just because this thing is so freaking big that they had to add an accent piece that was equally as big as well. Okay. Let me see. Where is there another photo of the other side? Okay, so one thing that I did see, and it's kind of hard to see on here. I saw it in another photo. Right here there's a panel, and I don't know if this panel has some kind of control knob or if that is a lid for something. Doesn't seem like it would be a reservoir of any sort because the engine comes up through here. But this could be for something. I'm not 100% sure. It, maybe here in the near future we'll see something for that. But for now, we're kind of stuck with that. One thing I do see though is that this bracket that's tied into the shock. If these shock cartridges are similar, which they do look like they are, that means this bracket could probably be reused in older designs. I do see what looks like adjustable knobs on the top of the shocks, like what comes in the adventure models. So maybe that's something that's carried over. And again, as I mentioned, this rear shock appears to be exactly the same as the older models. Obviously, the exhaust is different. There's quite a large looking canister boot exhaust looking thing in the back here. Um, I'm sure people will find ways to just delete that altogether with no problem. Okay. Let's see. I don't want to miss anything here. Yep. Okay. All right. There's that exhaust once again. Yeah, it's a big old. That's probably. This is probably the cat, and if this is a muffler, it may also. It's probably just a muffler section, just based on its design, at least looking at it. There's a clamp down here, so looks like as far as aftermarket exhaust goes, that would be an easy swap out. Sprocket, the rear sprocket, from an OEM standpoint, it's a nice rear sprocket. Looks kind of like a big sprocket comparison to OEM. I'm not. It's hard to tell how many teeth are on that thing. Um, let's see. What else can we see here? Radiator. Hmm. Radiator looks bigger. One thing I don't like is that, I mean, I get it. The radiator was like pretty tucked in this area on the first and second gen. It seems to have gotten a lot closer towards the rear or the front tire. Um, and there's no guard on here, so maybe in some of the other models there will be. From what I can see, though, we have the engine which comes up this way. You can see the fans here. Yep, there's the engine, comes up. And then over here, you can see some on the side of the cylinder, there's some webbing. So that's, I'm not sure if that's just to strengthen the cylinder head and whatnot. So again, that could allude to, maybe some differences in power, so to speak. And then, as I mentioned previously, dual O2 sensors, which is going to be a pain for tuning, or at least, you know, having check engine lights should you decide to get a free flowing exhaust. As far as coolant system, the rest of the stuff goes, it's kind of hard to tell from this photo. And I'm looking for any other additional features I can see. That looks about it. So if this is the 390, at least the new 390, I'm interested to see what you guys think. So let me know down below what your thoughts are. What you what do you think about this mammoth tooth gas tank flare? And tell me which one you like the best: second gen, first gen, or the third gen mammoth tooth gen. Um, I'm kind of partial to second gen. I love the way that it looks. And it looks like it also has the TTF screen as well. So, all right, everybody. Well, that's it, I guess. This is just a, you know, a quick review of what could or could may or may not be the new 390. Just kind of looking at what we can see, and hopefully we'll find out more here in the near future. All right, that's it for now. Thanks.